All right, Jennifer, thank you so much for agreeing to be our first participant for our Closing the Distance Stories from Pandemic video series. Can you start out by telling us just who you are and how long you've been a member at the church and what it is that you do at the church?
Yeah, so I'm Jennifer Scott, and I have been a member of Second Pres since 2000. And since 2000, I don't know that there's hardly been a committee that I haven't been on, except for you don't want me on finance or building, so I don't do those two things. But I've been almost a lot of the other them, and currently I'm serving on the fellowship committee. And I work for the Cabbage Patch, and that's how I got to know people from Second and decided to join Second.
Great. So what's been challenging for you during this time of pandemic?
Yeah, so being single and living alone, really it's sometimes the loneliness and the really long days of being here by myself has really been a challenge. And I've been really blessed that I still have had a job through all of this, but I've had to learn how to work from home. And I'm naturally a planner by nature, and during the pandemic, planning was, what happens tomorrow. And so it's really gone against my nature not to know more than kind of today, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine that some of the plans, especially with Cabbage Patch, that you were making for the fall even, were sort of sidetracked.
Oh yeah, like we're having a retirement party for my executive director that's just retired, and I had to plan that party 3 times, and it didn't end up looking in the end like it's going to look. We're going to have to do something virtual. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really hard.
It's hard.
One of the things that's been hard for me is missing some of those big moments when you just want to be together so bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what have been some of the things that have brought you comfort during this time?
Well, I would tell you it was snacks and an occasional happy hour, but
yes.
Seriously, I think it's really being able, when I connect with my friends that are really like my family, and most of those have been people that I've met through Second, so they're my family, and that's sort of my link to normal, and remembering that God is with me even when I'm alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so important. I've had to learn that too. Mm-hmm. What are some of the memories that will stay with you from this time of pandemic?
So the memories that came to me were sort of related to Second Pres and my job in some ways, because I remember getting a text just before Easter, and a member asking, would you all like 100 Easter baskets that you could give the children? And it touched me, because there was a mommy that responded to that saying that she had been laid off from her job, and she had a young son, and she had no idea how she was going to bring something normal to him during that time. So that was a blessing, and it sticks out in my head. I've gotten several phone calls from members saying, hey, what do y'all need for the food pantry? Or I have my car full of food or toilet paper, or I just purchased some things or collected things from my Sunday school class. Can we bring them down? It's just very heartwarming to see that people care in a difficult time. And just the other day, I got a phone call from a high school senior, not her mommy, but from her. Mm-hmm. And she said, I want to really show love to kids in the West End in this difficult time. What can I do? And, it really kind of melted my heart, because I saw the future and the future leadership, and I felt like it was a little more hopeful than it was the day before, particularly during this time of racial tension. Mm-hmm. And then last, I was really touched when at my session meeting we had, and kind of how the session really saw themselves as wanting to take a bold move and be partners with our mission partners, and wanting to be the hands and feet of Christ to them in a difficult time, and took a bold step. And so that was very encouraging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the generosity of Second Pres has given me a lot of hope during this time as well, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What about, tell me a little bit more about your work at Cabbage Patch during this time, and what's been challenging, what's been surprising, what have you learned, and what might be some of the next steps that the patch is thinking about taking as we move out of pandemic mode?
Right. So to this point, our program staff have been doing virtual programming, so to speak. They're calling, texting, emailing, Zooming, however they can get people to respond to them with our children and their parents. And I've been really surprised at how incredibly resilient these families are despite all their obstacles. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've never known what it's like to be hungry. I've lived in a family that always had enough, you know, and so it's hard to hear how these families are really struggling and need assistance with basic necessities of life, and that their parents are fiercely trying to make it happen for their children. And before the race issues came up, our families were telling us that they didn't feel safe to let their children even like go out and play or play in the backyard if they had a backyard. But since the race times, these last week or so, it's touched me deeply that I heard stories that they're just afraid to go out of their house. Mm-hmm. That when they see the police, they have distrust if they're a Black male. And I don't know what that's like. I've never had to live in a neighborhood that you didn't feel safe. And when I see police, my first thought is not distrust. I only live a few miles away, but I live in a very different world. And it's hard to hear their struggles. But ultimately, I know we have the same loving God. And so somehow, some way, love is going to win. Mm-hmm. But we're going to have to be part of that solution in the midst of all that. In the short term, on June 22nd, I believe it is, we are going to have some form of summer programming. Fortunately, our summer camp program model was small groups anyway, so we're going to let groups of 10 come in. I think there's maybe 3 different groups that they're letting in, but they can only stay in one section of the room. If they go to one room, if they go to another room, then we have to wipe things down and take temperatures and make sure that, you know, all those things that they're asking us to do with COVID stuff. So it's a very different world. I don't know what beyond the summer will exactly look like. We haven't gotten that far. Once again, you know, long-term planning is just, now it's a couple of weeks. But I do know that we've had to cancel all of our in-person special events this year. And so that's a little scary. And we're trying to figure out how to still make enough money in a different way. So far, people have been very, very generous. We're very, very grateful for that, but the biggest source of money always comes towards the end of the year and through a couple of our events. So I don't know, learning to trust God in new ways, I guess.
Amen. Yeah. So if there was anything that anyone wanted to do to help out Cabbage Patch right now, what would be a good way for them to get involved?
Yeah, so if you go to the website and at the top of the banner, there's a COVID. You click on that. Every week we update the list of food items that are needed. The last report that I got from the staff, they said that people are still asking for food, so that's still a food, but they're beginning to be more anxious about utilities and rent because before too long, that buffer of not being evicted or having your vet turned off is coming to an end. But that's not known exactly when that'll happen, but it will. So that anxiety about that is growing. Plus, the government has given some more money on the SNAP card for a little while. So families have a little more money to do their own grocery shopping. That probably will end as well sometime this summer. So the food need will go back up, even though it's kind of plateaued at the moment. So that's on there every week of what the current needs are. You know, and I know it sounds slightly trite, but really praying for the families, because this is a tough time. And like I said, with the race relations, it's a whole new level of what they're feeling and thinking, and it's intense for them.
Yeah, I don't think that's trite at all. That's what we're called to do. One of the many things that we're called to do in this time, and to respond faithfully.
Right.
Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share with folks about what your experiences during pandemic have been like?
So you'd sent me this one question and about, what influenced my faith during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I love the Mr. Rogers quote about, look for the helpers. And so it's really sort of a faith builder to remember to have eyes to see those things, because sometimes you can just focus on the negative things. But when you learn to see the helpers, then you see God in action. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, amen. I know that that Cabbage Patch is one of the helpers in our community that I've been able to see. So thank you so much for the work that you do there, and for taking a few moments to share some of your experiences and your stories.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to being together with everybody again.
Me too.
The thing I miss the most is the people that we get to see their faces and interact with them. And I think when we get through all of this, none of us will ever take worship together again for granted. It'll be a new world of appreciating community and togetherness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agree. I'm anxious for that day as well.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Jennifer. Appreciate it.